to ask questions, to make comments. Unfortunately, we don't have much time. The food is waiting for us. A great reception out there. So in the next 15 minutes, we hope to cover some of the issues. You have heard from a distinguished diplomat, a distinguished editor, a distinguished former lawmaker, and a less than so professor. So you have a very good combination of views here, and now the place is at your end. I think there's also Thank you. Now, questions, comments? Yes, go ahead, please.
I'm Alan Kiesler. I'm a retired Foreign Service officer and was responsible for land Department of State. And my question is, I read a rather lengthy speech that Khamenei gave in response to the President's greeting. And what you say is true, that this would be a non-emotional decision and so on and so forth. This comes after pages of what can only be discovered as a rant that says death to America. So what's the justification for ignoring the first part and crediting the second?
All right. Anyone wanted to respond?
I agree with you. I mean, there is an extraordinary rant in which every single alleged or real U.S. misdeed, from the 1953 coup, the shooting down of the plane in '88, and everything else, is included. Look, my sense is this is two things. My sense is this is an opening gambit. There's no way that things are going to move rapidly or easily after 3 decades of total non-communication. And the anti-Americanism of the regime is a major pillar of it, and to move away from it is risky, as we heard. So I think it's an indication of the difficulties that are there and that will be there, but it is not, in any sense, I think it would be wrong to interpret it as closing the door. Indeed, as we've discussed, he does, Khamenei does say that when tangible measures come forward, and we've heard a few suggestions here, he's ready to listen and move accordingly. But we shouldn't underestimate, it is a risk. It is a risk. Right now the economy is bad. Oil is at $40 instead of 140. And these chants, while they're ritualistic and these days made without any enthusiasm in my observation, this is a pillar that it's risky to move away from. So we have to provide the necessary reassurance, and I think the President started moving in that direction with his Nouroz address.
I haven't actually read the statement, so you're ahead of me. The fellow who works with me, who read it in the original Farsi, said that it was less negative than the initial press account suggested, and did tend to emphasize the kind of put up or shut up quality. Nice words are nice, but it'll take more than rhetoric to alter the relationship.
This question is so important. I would like to mention a little bit from the historical perspective. Okay, in 1994, for the first time, Vice President of the country said we should have negotiation with the United States. What happened after that? A student demonstrated against him because why you say negotiation with the United States? From that taboo, we come from this. It is not possible just with just one message we say, okay, we will forget all of things behind, then we will accept positive side of it. And this one aspect that we should look at the psychological part of this process, and also this has a domestic issue. We should look at from domestic perspective to this issue, and I would say this is the best answer from insider perspective to the like. Even if we look at the President Obama's Nouroz message, you will find that if we want to look at it from Iranian perspective, you will find out negative aspect even at that part. So let's just look at the positive side of any message exchange between these two countries, not just repeating negative.
I think we can take let me take a few questions, so then I think you have raised the question before the answers. I think you have to wrap up this in 5 minutes. Go ahead, please. Quickly.
I think it is important policy. Just to follow up on this psychological issue, it's very important, because I think the bigger picture is that we have to start talking about the clash of civilizations. The civilized people are too busy having God days and discussing issues. But the clash of psychosis, and I think Master knows point out the psychological underpinnings of the behavior that we mentioned, and maybe now we can move towards the global therapy, collective therapy process that will.
All right, so Chief, there was a yes, please. If you can loud, please. Wait, I don't hear you. Thank you. And then there are, Gareth, please.
I have a question about the nuclear issue. 2 parts. First, should the United States, should the Obama administration abandon what appears to be a totally unrealistic demand that Iran cease desist from any further uranium enrichment, and instead focus on the more achievable objective, and a very important objective, of binding Iran to a system of very tough inspection by the IAEA, which would be the best insurance that we have against nuclear weapons, an actual nuclear weapons manufacturing program. Instead, as is diplomatic objective. And the second part, is there any evidence that any of you know of that at present there's someone in the Obama administration who is in fact trying to push that objective as the U.S. diplomatic objective?
And there are 2 more questions that they have. Yes, sir. We'll take your one here. Very quickly, please.
Yes, very quickly. The ignorance and the misperceptions about Iran are so profound that I want to congratulate Mr. Cohen for the wonderful articles that he's written. What he raised in one of the articles, which was about Israel, saying that the notion in this town and around the United States that Israel can do no wrong is the most dangerous strategic mistake that can be made in terms of security for Israel. I'd like to ask if you can say a few words about that.
Unfortunately, most of my question was asked over there. No, the only thing I think that the whole panel probably didn't want to address is why Iranians have hostile attitude toward United States. That's the main part. What the CIA did, what the 1953, Iran was the first country in the region, probably everywhere, that had the democratic, government elected freely, but was overturned by the United States. That's the main part. I don't want to go more.
My name is Abad. The question about Israel was asked. I want to ask you to talk about this Clinton position. Where I understand that President Obama, like Secretary Clinton, has taken a very hard position, and I don't know where to see her change it.
Thank you. And I think now I'm going to The ladies, I cannot stop you. Go ahead. I don't dare to.
Nobody mentioned about lifting the sanctions.
Okay, good. I did actually. All right, now I didn't have in less than a few minutes. Please, each of you 1 minute. Wrap up.
On the human rights issue of women's rights, I mean, I don't think the United States should be more exigent with countries we don't like than countries we do. And I don't think we should be harder on countries with whom we have little influence than countries in which we have a lot of influence. So I think we ought to have a common standard that applies to Saudi Arabia, that applies to Egypt, and that applies to Iran. On the issue of the sort of whether there's a particular psychosis or psychology for dealing with Iranians, you know, there is a popular view, particularly in the U.S., that Iranians are particularly difficult to negotiate with. Not having tried, it's not clear why the United States believes that. But you know, my experience, you know, prior to my negotiation with the Iranians, I'd spent a lot of time dealing with Soviet apparatchiks, Somali warlords, Caribbean dictators, Balkan war criminals, and Afghan mujahideen. And I'll tell you that the Iranians I dealt with were by far the most professional, the most reliable, and the most handful. So, you know, my view is, you know, just do it. Stop, you know, all this angst, all this mystery, I think is somewhat exaggerated. Yeah, they have national interests, they have a history. There's no two countries who have better reasons to hate each other than the United States and Iran, based on any number of terrible things that we've done to each other over the last 50 years. And clearly that's a backdrop to our discussions, and has to be, and negotiators have to be conscious of it, but they have to rise above it. On the issue of the nuclear negotiations and whether we should drop our insistence on stopping enrichment before we, as a precondition for resuming talks, my own view is that from a tactical standpoint, it doesn't make sense for us to start our dialogue with Iran with a concession. I think that puts us in a weak position domestically. I think it puts us in a weak position internationally. So my view is start the talks, don't have any preconditions on either side. Eventually we're going to have to face the issue you suggested, and we need to do it on a common basis with the other participants in those negotiations. But that's not where I would start.
Yeah, well, maybe I'll go straight to the... I think I disagree with Jim on that. The thing is, though, that the suspension requirement, as you know, is written into, I think, 3, certainly, you know, more than 1 UN resolution. So moving back from it is complicated. It's not just a question of changing course. But I do think it's meaningless, a meaningless kind of obstacle, because you can suspend enrichment and you can start it again 2 months later. And the more important thing is to try to bind Iran into a framework where we assure that the enriched fuel, low enriched fuel at this point, is not being diverted. As to whether anyone within the administration is advocating that, I don't know, but my impression is that the commitment toward engagement, toward changing something, toward opening a new path is extremely strong. And even some people who have been quite hardline in the past, notably Dennis Ross, who clearly has a key role in the whole review of Iran policy, my impression is that he has moved quite substantially from positions he previously espoused. Just very quickly on Israel, yeah, I just think that Israel, after 7-8 years of a free pass from the Bush administration, finds itself in a more difficult situation, a more anguished situation than it has for many years, more unpopular around the world, more criticized around the world, more uncertain of its place in the Middle East. And I think it's a very bad thing that when somebody like myself starts suggesting that Israel should be criticized, for example, for continuing with the settlements, or should be criticized for what happened in Gaza, then this cry, comes up, the self-hating Jew, the Jew who can't sort of
look deeply enough into him or herself to discover that what he or she really wants to do is just unequivocally support Israel across the board. And to my mind, that's most importantly bad for the long-term security of Israel. We can have differing views on what is best for Israel. And on the clashing psychoses, I like that phrase. I think that's absolutely right. And if we look at the psychology of this, going back to Jim's point, we should recognize, I think, that, and this goes perhaps to the Khamenei speech, look, Iran's been winning for the last 7-8 years. It feels psychologically strong. Enemies have been removed. It has more influence across the Middle East. And the concessions it was prepared to make a few years back are no longer on the table. So I think we have to factor that in. I do think Iranians are probably very good negotiators, haggling over anything, and the whole elaborate psychology of the phrase is slipping my mind, but the way people compliment each other, Tatarov, thank you. This is a very elaborate psychological game, but anyone, even spending only 3 weeks in Iran, becomes a lot of Tatarov, and this is clearly a very subtle form of flattery in order to sometimes get what one wants. But Jim's right, let's get in there. As for human rights, I'll leave that, if I may, to you. But generally, I think the more engagement there is, the more chance we have of improving the human rights situation, which absolutely and unequivocally must be addressed and improved.
I agree with last statement regarding human rights, and just added that the regime look at the human rights issue and women's rights issue right now from national security perspective, and that is their assumption. And if we go towards negotiation and to normalization relation, I would imagine that human rights violation dramatically would drop and would give more room to promote women's rights and democracy in Iran. Regarding the nuclear issue, I think for that part, United States cannot look at the issue from just its perspective. They should look at the Iranian interest in this part, and I would say I would more agree with the speaker's statement that halting enrichment should be result of negotiation, not precondition. Thank you very much.
Well, let me just say one thing before I give this space to our next group. This is a hypothesis on the table for everybody who wanted to challenge it. There has never been a country in the world that has become democratic in the absence of diplomatic relations with the United States of America. Okay. So as long as the United States and Iran do not have diplomatic relations, Iran will not become a democracy. Okay, for those of you who are against that relationship, please consider. Now, I think the next group, I wanted to ask, okay, hello, Dr. Khatami. I'm sorry, we are late, but please, I wanted to join. Yes, please.
I'm going to suggest that the best way to get to the heart of the people is through their stomach. And yes, please, let's get our food. Yes. Come back, sit down, and Dr. Khatami is going to serenade.
Okay, so we go to food and then come back here and Dr. Khatami will talk, all right? Thank you.
As Sadi would say, love is the candy we eat. All the rest...
Both distinguished Iranian Americans, and they contribute to our community extensively. I'm not supposed to be the person to introduce anybody, but that is why I am going to leave, okay, and let you face directly with Cleo and Maslow. thank you to both of you. And one thing I have to say is that today we put all of the things that you see there on the hot scene is both good, and the whole thing, including the hot scene, I'm sorry. Okay, and there were other people that worked with them, and I thank all of them. Thank you.
Actually, Chef Benjamin arranged the whole thing, and Chef Mario. And a special thanks to Ellie. She is magnificent. She really worked very hard. Basically, I don't want to say much because Dr. Khatami is going to go over the history and the meaning of Nouroz. But I just want to say, in the words of President Obama, Eid Shoma Mubarak, which means Happy New Year. And truly, we are living in magical times. We should be grateful that we are living in this time, because what is happening is outstanding. It's unique. I wish all my parents, my brothers, those who have gone, were here to see this, because this is unique. Thank you so much. Here's Dr. Khatami.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I would like to thank Hoshang and Dr. Wallace for inviting me for today's presentation. I will be very, very short. I take it as a credit while I'm talking and you're reading. I think that's great. My disclaimer, number one, I'm not a politician. My profession is reproductive medicine. I help couples to achieve parenthood. That's why when it comes to the story of rebirth of life, they ask me to talk about Nouroz.
You reproduce politicians.
That's it. The other disclaimer is that I have no relationship with President Khatami. It is really a great honor for me to present the history of Nouroz in Washington very briefly. I believe there is no better time than now. I would like to take this opportunity to present the message of Nouroz, which is rebirth, love, and peace. Nouroz is a celebration of the first day of Persian New Year, which has been taking pride in itself over all other festivities. It is not an artificial social contract, nor is it an imposed political one. It is jubilation of a nation and also that of the earth, the sky and the sun. It is the beginning of Nouroz. Eid Shoma Mubarak. Over a millennium now, Nouroz has symbolized the new life of spring. We have long looked to this secular celebration for its revitalizing message of love and peace. A message, I think, we will all agree, that has never been more important, and a message that we all share with everyone. Nouroz is a celebration that has a special place in our heritage, but its message is one that rings true for all people everywhere. Nouroz is the reminiscing of a big memory, the memory of the solidarity of man and nature. Nouroz is the first day of creation, historically. It is the day that our Mazda began to create the world. We began to globalize this message of Nouroz in the United States for the past 25 years, me and my colleagues. A message that does not relate to any particular religion or political ideology. A message that relates to all people in peace and harmony. You have seen there. The politicians here recommended #sin, 10-sin, all political issues. But let's look at the message of #sin. Sabse, wheat, barley, lentil, sprout, rebirth. Samanu, a sweet pudding made from wheat germs, affluence. Senjep, the sweet dry fruit of Alistair tree, love. Seed, apple, fruit of Garden of Eden, representing beauty. I apologize for that mistake. I just turned it off. Sumac. Sumac is a sumac berry, spice of life. And sirke, vinegar, symbolizes age and patience. Sunbul, fragrant hyacinth flower coming of spring. And the last, not the least, seke. Seke is coin, symbolizes generosity and giving. I believe this message reminds me of the Charter of United Nations. It's even better, you agree. And this is the best time to promote the message of #sin. My activities toward promoting the message of Nouroz began in 1998. During a fundraiser in my own house, we asked Senator Torricelli, a close friend of President Clinton, to obtain such a proclamation from President Clinton for the Iranian American community. In view of especially of the political upheaval between the two nations. I want to show you a document here. This is a copy of the proclamation of Bill Clinton to my address, dated March 16, 1998. I just read one paragraph, which is so important. On March 21st, all people of Iranian heritage will celebrate the first day of spring and the arrival of the Iranian New Year. I join with Americans of Iranian heritage in celebrating the spirit of a community that binds us together as one great nation. I hope someday soon, United States and Iran once again enjoy good relationship together. This comes almost 12 years ago. And unfortunately, we are still at point A. My activity toward promoting the message of Nouroz began, this was almost 12 years ago. Ever since, upon our request, we have been getting goodwill messages from President Bush, Governor Corzine, Mayor Bloomberg, and other dignitaries. 3 years ago, I proposed the celebration of Nouroz at the Gracie Mansion to Mayor Bloomberg. Both my wife and I sponsored the celebration for 500 Iranian Americans at the Gracie Mansion for the first time. Ever since, we are fortunate that Mayor Bloomberg made this a precedent, and every year we have #sin and the traditional Persian food at the Gracie Mansion. This is important. For the past 4 years, I've been writing and calling the White House before the new administration, by the way. I was sure that they would follow suit. They would do the same thing. I was pleasantly surprised and appreciative that Mrs. Laura Bush, for the first time ever, invited us to a tea ceremony at the White House with #sin and all. I don't know who was present then. Anybody there? Well, there were only 10 Iranian Americans in that group. The rest, there were 40 of us. The rest were other countries' representatives who celebrate Nouroz. And I'm sure they were afraid of propagating the message. because of the political reason, of course. Today, I'm honored to be here with you, and I would like to propose that the timing of this couldn't have been better to globalize the message of Nouroz, which is contrary to some of the fanatic political agenda these days. President Obama's message, and reading some passages from Sa'di, تو که از مهنت دیگران بیغمی نشاید که نامد نهند آدمی بنی آدم اعضای پیکرند. All Iranians read this poet wrong. Sa'di says بنی آدم اعضای یک پیکرند نه یک دیگرند که در آفرینش ز یک گوهرند. President Obama's passage and reading from Sa'di, an Iranian philosopher and poet, made us, and particularly our second generation Iranians that they are here, made us once again proud to be of Iranian heritage. Thank you for listening, and have a good holidays.
Is an American painter who has gone to Iran and depicted the culture of Iran, the poetry of Iran, which is the most important thing. Among their food also is important, but so I would like to ask Laurie Bloom to come and just say a few words, because words don't have as much strength as if you look at her paintings. They are all displayed here.
Thank you. I'm a little short here. I just wanted to say that I've been in Iran 3 different times, 3 months each time, 9 months, between 2003 to 2005. And it just happened, it's magical, that I wanted to paint in the gardens in Shiraz. And they told me that I wasn't allowed to paint at Hafez's tomb in Shiraz. And I just did it anyway. And they said, let her do what she wants, it's beautiful. And then it came to the attention of the Shiraz Cultural Institute, and they gave me a show, the first artist to ever have a show at the tomb of Hafez. And then my work came to the attention of the United Nations through the permanent mission of Iran. So I had a show there. Everything has happened through their good graces. And I met President Ahmadinejad, and he took a copy of the Peacock painting back with him to Iran in September. And in October, I met Vice President Mashari, and he's invited me to have a series of shows in different provinces in Iran. Because they told me that the paintings show the real dialogue between civilizations, and that's the silent language of the heart. So I have all my literature there, and if anyone has any questions, I'd be glad to answer them. And I love, Shiraz is the most beautiful place on earth. Shiraz is the city of creativity, and ever since I was a child, I was seeking for my inner garden. And I found in Shiraz, Bagh-e-Iran, and what I found, what I want to say about Iran is that it was a mirror for my heart. And the people from the Cultural Institute, Mr. Navi, publisher in Iran, told me, Laurie is from the West and we are from the East, but her paintings show the real dialogue between civilizations. And artists might say this line isn't right or that line isn't right, but Laurie paints with feeling, and that's something new. And the paintings are about feeling, and that's what was found in Iran. The people are very in touch with their feelings, and it was something that's missing in the West. And I think that what I have found is like the other half myself, and that's why we all need to open up to Iran to learn about ourselves. We're cutting off from our own self by having this head-to-head, mind-to-mind combat. And we're missing out on the richness of the culture that is part of our ancient history. So that's what I wanted to say. And thank you.
Not just Dr. Khatami, who is from Shiraz, my wife is also from Shiraz. Let's take credit here. Yeah. So is, yes, she was born at the Shiraz. All right.
She was Valerie Jarrett, senior advisor to Barack Obama, President Obama. She was born in Shiraz. Her parents, African American doctor. He was a doctor at Nouroz Hospital, so she was born there at the Nouroz Hospital. And then after 5 years, she was 5 years old that they moved back. And I invited her to this event, and she wrote back and she thanked me, and but unfortunately she could not make it. But they are all aware of this event.
It seems to me that not only my wife is from Shiraz, but I am also Shirazi because my wife is Shirazi. Today is the town of Shiraz. Jared is there too. Let me just bring this session to an end and ask you again to go and eat the rest of the food there if you can. It has been a great pleasure to serve you here today, and we are very honored that we had a very distinguished group of speakers and audience. Let me leave you with a thought. Organizations like American Iranian Council really depend on you. Let me say this way. We do not take money from any government, including Iran or the United States or any other government. Our funding comes from individuals like you, corporations if they were to give us money. Unfortunately, there is no business, so they are not giving us money. And foundations, Rockefeller Brothers Fund and Open Society Institute. So please, when you go back home, if you want us to continue doing the kind of thing that you saw we did today, please help AIC. It's very easy. You could write a check and send it to us, give us to us today, or go to the website and there is a button say donate. It's just very, very easy. It's secure. It's 100%, okay, secure and guaranteed. All right, that's one. And also I wanted to tell you that a forthcoming book from the American Iranian Council has Vice President Joe Biden's picture on it. You're surprised why this is so? Because he spoke for AIC some years ago, and we did not have a chance to publish the book, but now that he is Vice President, we could not afford not to publish it. So the next book from the American Iranian Council will be out soon with Vice President Joe Biden's picture on it. Please, and in 2 weeks you can write to AIC for a copy of the book. And it will be very inexpensive. I will see. Okay, how inexpensive is just Vice President. So okay, thank you very much again, and please join the place out there and send yourself more. Thank you. God bless you.